Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, this nation's hospital system is built on sickness. We're going to talk to a wellness expert who believes in holistic healing. Her incredible journey just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
So it fascinates me. We know more about the human body than we've ever known before. We know more about how the brain works. We know more about every organ in your body. And yet, as a nation, we get sicker and sicker every single year. So the solution, obviously, is a holistic approach to wellness. And that's why I have my next guest on this show. Tatiana Miller is on the show. She's with RX for Life. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
And I bet you, I mean, you see so many people who come into your life and maybe they've been on prescription medicine for many years. So talk about your approach and how it differs from like the standard care in America.
Thank you so much. You're speaking my language. First of all, we are in a system, unfortunately, of sick care. And in my career, I've seen the education system, and that's the foundation, right? That's the root of why we are seeing a 300% increase in anxiety, depression, suicide. We are the sickest country. We're the most addicted to sugar. And it all starts with education and awareness. And we're not having that. Nobody teaches us how to be a human, right? That's my thing. And so working in a clinical environment, working in a corporate environment, working in the educational system, I've seen one thing that all 3 of those industrial organizations that sort of guide our life from the time we're young till the time we die, all 3 of those things have one thing in common, and that is that we are not teaching how to be healthy, right? We're not talking about well-being. We're talking about doing. We're not talking about being. And we never learn how to meet ourselves where we are with our mind, with our body, and with our spirit. And so my approach focuses very much on the 8 dimensions of well-being, of who we are, because what I've learned through school and through just actively being engaged with people is that we are interrelated in everything we do, right? Our mind, our thoughts, our emotions affect our physical body, affect how we're going to manage our relationships, affect how we're going to behave in our everyday lives, but also behave in the decisions that we make, and where does that lead us? And then we wake up and we're 40 and we hate our life, or we're overweight, or we're suicidal, or we've been depressed for 8 years. And so I've just found that the root of all that is 1, emotional intelligence, and 2, really understanding what is well-being and where do I shift from doing into being, and how does that work? And we're selling this idea of work-life balance, and that's a myth. That does not exist. What exists is creating harmony in your life so that you can do when you need to do and be when you need to be. But there's no balance in it. It's an everyday meeting yourself where you're at.
Yes, and she's had to overcome tremendous obstacles to get where she is now. I found an amazing clip on YouTube. Let's go ahead and roll that now.
Oh, my story starts from the beginning, right? Let's start from the roots. I talk a lot to my clients about your subconscious and how your upbringing and all these layers of yourself affect you. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my layers and how they've affected me. Pain has been a big player in my life. It's been front and center ever since I was young. So pain can be physical pain, pain can be emotional pain. For me, my life started out with emotional pain. My parents got divorced when I was very little. There was infidelity in my home. There was alcoholism with my stepmom, whom I lived with. But I really feel like the big turning point. So that's like the chaos that all of us have chaos to sort through, right? As we're we're growing up, as we're teenagers and stuff. And that was certainly part of my chaos. My parents lived in 2 countries. I flew back and forth as a child by myself, forcing me into really maturing faster than probably I needed to. And there's a lot of chaos and turmoil in that. But I really think the turning point for me was my first week of college. So I came to the United States after finishing high school in Mexico City. And my very first week of college, this is going to date me, but those phones with the spirally things, they used to sit in my dorm. And I remember it was like 4:30 in the morning, the phone rang. And I remember waking up and just knowing somebody had died. At that moment, I thought it was maybe a grandparent, but I knew that call was a call of death. So I picked up the phone, and I just remember my dad saying, your sister died in a car accident and you need to come home. Whew. And that really was a turning point in my life, because my family was very public at the time. And there was stories about her death in the newspaper. It was on TV. She had died in the car with my stepmother that was drunk, and she was decapitated. So it was a very tragic, traumatic reason to go home after only being at college for a week. And I remember stepping out of the car when we got to, it was also my brother's birthday, the day that my sister died. I was the older sister, and clearly there was a lot of pain, but I remember stepping out of the car, pulling up to the funeral home to see my sister's body, and there was just lights and reporters and a lot of commotion. But I looked across the street, and wow, I haven't gotten emotional about this in a long time, but I looked across the street and my entire senior class, the people I went to school with, were standing there for me. And that was the first time that I thought, oh my God, the power of somebody holding space for you. And that meant a lot to me. And I don't think I ever told any of them because life moves on. But that was the first really impactful thing in my life where I saw, 1, death up so close, 2, the power of people holding space for you, and 3, that life just goes on.
Tatiana, I have to admit, as I was watching that this morning, preparing for the show, I started to tear up with you. That probably was hard for you to share.
Absolutely. We brushed on it when you asked if you could show it. And it's, all of our wounds and all of our pain, whether it's physical or emotional, it lives within us, right? There's anguish in all of us. There's grief in all of us for different reasons. And sometimes it lays dormant, as mine had. And sometimes it's awake, and that shifts with where we are with our lives, what life stage we're in, what's happening in our everyday life, where our thoughts are, how emotional we're feeling. And that day, it really came up like, but I think that's what we need, right? We need to show vulnerability. We need to show that struggle is a part of life, that we have to engage in whatever struggle we have or whatever pain we're going through, because when we don't is when we start to have physical symptoms. When we don't is when we start to have relationship problems. When we don't is when we start to see our career suffer or how we care for the people that we love suffer. But it all starts with how we're caring for ourselves.
And that was just the beginning of a series of setbacks that you've overcome. You had a paralyzing accident.
Yes.
Would you share that with us?
Sure. So the root of why I got paralyzed is because I have autoimmune disease, which has increased, the diagnosis in autoimmune has increased by like 600% since that time. And I didn't know. I didn't know that my spine had been degenerating since the time I was a teenager. So I had a horse accident. I was told, hey, you're going to need surgery. This is really serious. Like many people, I went on about my life. I ignored it. And then one day, so that was the precursor, right? The autoimmune, the accident, me ignoring what I was told and how I needed to take care of myself, thinking I'm going to push through. I'm Superwoman. I'm going to keep going, like a lot of us do with our pain and with the things that we need to address, right? The things that we really should be leaning into. And so I'm teaching yoga one day, and I go to do a twist, and my legs come out from under me, and it's incredible. And I hear this a lot from people that experience traumatic situations, there's a knowing inside of you. As I'm falling, I'm like, can't feel my legs. Like I was so clear to me.
Wow.
And, people came running over and they said, let's get you up. And I said, you don't understand. You need to call an ambulance. And I laugh because it's so surreal, the knowing. I wasn't scared. It wasn't like, oh my God, it was just like this, like, I knew exactly. And when I got to the hospital, I told the doctor, I'm like, it's L4, L5. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it's L4, L5. He comes back, he goes, it's L4, L5. Like,
Wow.
So it was a very traumatic situation. I wouldn't have it any other way. I think if it wasn't because of that being paralyzed, where literally my life stopped, I wouldn't know how to embrace fear. I wouldn't have had the discovery of knowing that I am accountable for my health. It's not my husband's fault. It's not my kid's fault. It wasn't my work's fault. Those were distractions, external distractions. And I had to do it by myself, right? I had to do my healing. I had to do my recovery. I had 4 doctors tell me I'd probably be paralyzed for the rest of my life. I had to go, I don't accept that, and there has to be another way.
And I imagine it gives you tremendous empathy for the people that you're seeing because you've walked more than a mile in their shoes. Let's go ahead and pull up her website. And as we scroll down the website, let's talk about you work with a wide variety of people. Why don't you describe who needs to see you?
Anybody that feels like they're not where they want to be in their life. And that could be, I want to do something different with my career. That could be somebody that lives with chronic pain and doesn't know how to manage their day-to-day life. That could be somebody that just had a traumatic incident and they're trying to learn tools and resources to accept it, to surrender to the pain and work through it. I do a lot of executive coaching. I have a lot of referrals from physicians where they don't know what else is next for the patient because the blood work, the scan is not presenting what the patient is showing, right? So there we go. It's more of a holistic approach that needs to happen. How are the thoughts and the emotions manifesting in the physical symptoms? I do a lot of work with organizations in many different communities that want mental health resources through education. So public speaking, putting together programs, whether it be wellness or mental health programs, trainings, corporate trainings for companies, anything that has to do with mental health and education around emotional intelligence. I'm your gal.
And you were telling me a story right before we started taping about one of your favorite clients. Would you share that with us?
Sure. So like I said, I get referrals from physicians often, and this was a case where the patient kept passing out. They ruled out seizures. They ruled out all the neurological things that would cause somebody to lose consciousness. There was a lot of pain involved. The client had been attacked by a barracuda, which I forget how rare it is, but it's super rare. Like it's not a common thing at all over the world. So that in itself was traumatic, right? To have that happen to you. And the patient was denied medication because they didn't have any in the hospital where she went to, so she didn't have access to pain management. Then she was told she was faking. She had a series of traumatic situations in the medical healthcare system before she came to me, and nobody could figure out why she was passing out. So she comes to me, and I quickly realized she has not been guided through proper trauma care. She's not had a space to work through the emotional aspects of an accident or a tragic attack, in this case, both. And so I quickly realized that talking about it is what triggered her nervous system to go, we can't handle this. And what happens to your nervous system when it can't handle something? It wants to fight, it wants to run, or it freezes. And in this case, it would freeze because it just couldn't fight anymore. And that's what was causing her to pass out. Yeah. So I said to her, what do you love to do? She said, I love art. And I said, why don't we, instead of talking, because that's triggering you to relive this process, why don't we draw, and I'll ask you some questions and give you some coaching. And she created this piece of art that is so moving and so powerful. And I always try to tell my clients something that I learned through losing my sister in a tragic car accident, through living in a dynamic with alcoholism in my family, through my accident, through being told I had cancer, through all these things in my life. All of these hard horrible, icky, uncomfortable situations have a purpose, right? They lead us to our greatest potential as humans, to our ability to go out there and help someone else. And I said to her, are you okay with me sharing this? Because when I saw it, it teared me up. And she said, if it can help somebody, please use it. And I think that, you know, you're helping people, you know who you are, and you're out there. And I actually got a call from the neurologist. He said, what do I do? And I said, I'm going to send you something. I was on a cell phone. I sent it to him. He was like, oh my gosh. He said, this is how your patients feel when you don't listen. Wow. This is how your patients feel when you tell them they're wrong about their pain, because pain is pain. Whether it makes sense or not to us, emotional pain and physical pain is very present in people's lives. And so it's been a really powerful experience for me. She was told, you know, you're not going to have a functional life. You can't be normal. And we worked together for, I think, a series of like 5 to 6 months. And I said, time to go to school, time to go to college, time to do your life. And she's there, and she's having the time of her life. And I asked her how she was doing when she started college, which was recently. She went away. You know, the family was very hesitant. And her grandma sent me a note, and she said, we've never seen her smile with so much joy.
Wow.
You know, and she is just embracing her pain and the limitations that she might have, and enjoying her life more, right, than she would have if this hadn't had happened. And that's really what happened with me. And the story that you shared is that I value my body. I want to take care of my body. I want to listen to my body. I want to share with others how empowering that is, yes, to embody ourselves rather than ignore ourselves or run away from ourselves.
Well, Tatiana, we only have about a minute left. So in the final minute or so, why don't you talk to the person who's struggling?
So it doesn't matter what the diagnosis is, what the obstacle is, where you are within yourself. There is a way to shift from feeling like you're surviving to thriving, because it's not about what's happening externally to us or coming at us. It's about our ability to feel and be where we want to be within ourselves. And there is a way for you to feel how you want to feel and to thrive.
Outstanding. Mic drop moment. Thank you so much. We're going to end with your website, which is mentalhealthsolutionsonline.com. The great Tatiana Miller. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
You bet.
Yeah.
That's it for now. We'll see you next time.